It's pretty simple, to be honest. It has to be that way, obviously. We've made a very complicated way of seeing things. And what happens, and the only reason for even exploring the world in this way is because what happens is that when we have this dual perception, this perception of duality, we lose the intimacy of our experience. And I want to put it like this. When we are on a roller coaster, when we're skydiving, or when we're having sex, or when we're just being intimate, or when we are just playing games, having fun, like everything fun that we do, we are never in that dual perception, you see? We are in complete intimacy with our experience. There's no separation from it. Like hugging everything. Imagine everything is a hug, right? That is why we would even bother even going in this direction to begin with. It's not just here just for fancy play on mind tricks and intellectual gymnastics. This is a real, genuine experience that we're always having, but we do not have this model for it. It's like experiencing our belly button every day and not knowing it's there. Might not be the best example, but it's the closest example I can think of. And what we're doing is we're experiencing this intimacy all the time and never really experiencing it. So what I want you to do is to first of all realize we need to first see the model for we could call it the model of separation. The model of separation is that there's an object, then there's something the object produces, such as a sound, a sensation, a visual, a color, something that we perceive of it. Then there's the field of perception, which is like if you think about it, you're always hearing, but you're hearing different sounds. But the experience of hearing is always the same, whether it's the sound of a door slamming, a cow mooing, a clock ticking, or a bell ringing. These all take place in the experience of the perception of hearing. Likewise, you're always seeing, but you're seeing different things. But the experience of seeing is always the same. So that's perception. That's what I call perception. So object, sensible quality, perception, and then that which observes it. So we have four things there. We have four, like we don't need more than one really, but we've dissected this into four things, and this is what the mind does. It does this in order to create an individual experience. It's a fair enough process, you see? Without dissecting experience into these little shapes, and then therefore dissecting our own body into its own little shape, we could not have an individual experience. But now we've got the individual experience. Great, perfect. Check that off the list. We want an individual experience, but we want to be having an individual experience as a universal being, you see, as an infinite being, because it is an infinite being that is having an individual experience. So now what we're doing is we're saying that this body is also a faculty of perception that every other object in the apparent room is. You see, this body is no different to the cup on the table. It's in the field of seeing. The body that I experience as a sight and that you experience as a sight is inside the perception of seeing, you see? Now what we're going to do is we're going to see, well, first of all, anything that we touch of an object is never the object. The object doesn't have a sensation. If you were to touch the object doesn't have coded inside it a sensation. You see, a sensation is purely an experience created by our mind. So if we touch the object that we apparently see, we cannot actually touch it. But we could say then, well, no, I see the object. Well, no, you don't see the object. You're seeing color. And we know color is purely a mind experience. Now tell me, what would be left of the object if there wasn't any color? There would be nothing. We'd call it invisible. But then we'd say, no, I can feel the object. Well, no, you'd go to touch the invisible object, and now you're just feeling a perception. You're not actually touching the object. You see? This is also why science has said, like, we never touch an object. There's some invisible barrier between the object. No, invisible barrier. Come on. Science is telling you there's invisible barriers that they can't explain. This is just a joke at this point. Invisible. An invisible barrier that stops you from touching the object that we have no idea what it is. Anyway, um, so we're touching a sensation, we're not touching the object. So we have object, we're not experiencing it, so we can't even include that in this model. Then we go to the sensation. We are experiencing a sensation, but also we're experiencing the perception exactly the same time. So what we commonly believe is that when we touch the object, we are perceiving the object. But no, we're perceiving a sensation. But also the sensation is taking place in the field of perception. Could you have a separate sensation that is at a distance to or outside the field of perception, which would be the field of sensing? Of course not. How could you have a sensation that takes place outside of the field of sensation? That would be impossible. Where would it be? You see? So then we see that, okay, well, the object's not there, the sensation is there, but actually the sensation is made of the perception of it. The field of sensation that I feel when I touch my body, my clothes, blah, 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 that field of sensation, it's actually made of perception. The perception creates it. You see? We're not touching an external sensation. We're touching the field of perception, which is simultaneously creating the sensation. So the field of perception, let's just take a sound, for example, the sound of a bell. We think we're hearing a bell, we're not hearing a bell, but we are hearing a sound. But the sound is actually not just a sound, it's actually made of the perception of it. The field of perception of all the things you apparently hear, that experience of hearing, it's made of hearing. So there's no sound, there's just hearing. And hearing takes shape, just like there's pure consciousness taking shape of thought. You see? The same way that a sound is compressed air, a thought is compressed consciousness. And that's what creates this apparent appearance of something other than consciousness, which is made of consciousness. Now, going back to the field of hearing, we're just experiencing this perception of hearing. We're never hearing the object, we're never hearing the sound, we're just hearing hearing. You see? And then we say, well, what can you not take away from hearing in order for you to still hear? There's nothing you can take away from hearing in order to still hear, because if you take away the one thing that's there, which is the consciousness of it, you can't hear it anymore. So we see that perception, all there is to perception is this field of hearing, of the perception of hearing, the sound, and the experience of consciousness. So is consciousness in the head looking out into a field of perception and then that finds an object? Obviously not. You can't have a consciousness that, where would the border be? Where would the border be between consciousness, perception, and the apparent sound? There couldn't be one. If there was a border, you wouldn't hear it. In the same way that if there was a blockage in the electricity channeling the power to your TV, the TV wouldn't turn on. You can't just have it's not just electricity and it stops and then it goes over here and it starts again. It's like it has to go all the way through. But if consciousness is going all the way through from itself to perception to sound, it's not three separate things. It has to all be made of consciousness, in the same way that the electricity that powers the TV is the same electricity that powers all the other lights in the house. You see? It's not different consciousnesses. We don't have a little bit of consciousness here, a little bit there, and a little bit there in the object, just so we can perceive a little bit enough of it. It's like everywhere. You see? So this seemingly dissected process of object, we have the sound, we have the perception, and we have consciousness. These three seemingly separate experiences, these three seemingly distant things, they're not at a distance at all. You see? And when we look, we are that awareness which is experiencing that. So where do we take place? We think we're taking place in the head. No. Because now if you go to the experience of the body, you notice that the body, the experience of the body, if we close our eyes for a minute, is a sensation, which is a field of perception. And the field of perception is made of consciousness. So when you experience a perception, if you move your arm, your hand, or your apparent arm or hand, what you're really experiencing is awareness. You're experiencing the awareness taking shape of that perception. So there's nothing witnessing your experience. You're not the witness to experience. You're not inside, I am the witness witnessing. This isn't Buddhism. This is pure non-duality, pure experiencing. There's no object witness. There's no witnessing perception. There's just pure perception. Nothing to witness it, nothing to find, just pure perception. That's pure consciousness. That's how we would take this meditative approach into the world. You see? Now, we can't find ourselves at this point because we are not located in time or space. Only things that seem to be located in time and space can you find. But when you go there, you cannot find it. So if you go to your experience of being in the head, again, your head experience is taking place inside the field of perception, of sensation. If you opened your eyes, your head, I mean, if you were to remove the camera image or your own, or went looking into a mirror, you wouldn't experience your head, you see? You would experience the field of seeing. And then the minute that you looked into a mirror, yes, you would see a head, but that's another object taking place inside the field of perception, which is where you take place. And you don't take place in the head, you take place in the field of perception because you are the field of perception. You are pure perception, you see? You are the experience of the field of perception, which includes thoughts, sights, sensations, sounds, tastes, everything. They're not different experiences. They are one field of consciousness. So now take away these 5 categories of experience. You see, if we clap, typically we're like, no, there's a sound and a sensation. No, there's not. There's no sound and sensation. They're not taking place. One's in this little filing cabinet and one's in the next filing cabinet. They're in the same experience. They are the same experience, which is pure perception. There's nothing to witness it and nothing witnessing. It's just happening. It's just being, you see? There's nothing inside or outside. It's like clay. If you had a planet made of clay, where does clay take place? Does it take place inside or outside the planet? It is the planet. You cannot have clay inside it. Clay isn't inside clay. Clay isn't outside clay. It's just clay, you see? If you were to turn that into a vase, where does the clay take place in the vase? It doesn't take place in the vase. It doesn't take place outside the vase. It's made of clay, you see? Likewise, consciousness, it doesn't take place inside or outside the body. It's just the body is made of consciousness. It's made of the field of perception. I want you to see that it's like wave, ocean, and water. Wave, ocean, water. It's the same as sound, perception, consciousness. We believe that there's a wave, then we think it's in the ocean, and then it's made of water. We're never seeing a wave. We're never seeing an ocean. We're only seeing the water. Likewise, we're never hearing the sound. We're never hearing. We're only experiencing consciousness. You see? But there are 3 ways of seeing. But what we're doing here is recognizing the only way of seeing that is actually real, which is pure being, pure consciousness. So instead of seeing, oh, look, there's a wave, it's in an ocean, and it's made of water, we just see that it's just made of water. Now, we're not just here to just see that. We want to use this as a practical means because we want intimacy with our experience. We want freedom from our experience. We don't want to feel like we're trapped in the body and that we are located. We want our whole experience to be our body. We don't just want to be contracted and localized within it. So this is the point of this exploration. I hope this brings some clarity. I have a free community. I take people through these explorations every single week for free. If you'd like to join, feel free to click the link. Take care, guys. Bye.